Welcome to the 517 In Your Business podcast. Here's your host, Mary Gaida.
Welcome to the 517 In Your Business podcast. Today we have Elyse Ribbons, owner of Chengdu Teahouse, which we feature in our April 2025 edition of 517 Business. I've been practicing. Should I say ni hao ma?
Hey, 不错呀. That's not bad at all.
Okay, great.
Yeah, good job.
Elyse, after spending nearly 25 years in China, what made you decide to open a tea house right here in Lansing, Michigan?
Well, there were a couple of factors. One, business-wise, Midwesterners drink more hot tea than any other group in America. So there was a potential audience. Also, Post Oak is here. And so my daughter is able to continue with her Mandarin education. And first and foremost, I just fell in love with Lansing and Old Town. And I thought, this is the place that I want to put down roots. This is the place I want my family to grow and to connect, you know?
I know that you're truly authentic when you say that because I've seen you connecting on socials with so many of the local groups. And I can see that sort of cheerleader of the region in you already for only being back a fairly short time.
Yeah, and we have to be careful of the word back because I'm not from Lansing.
Right.
And so I have the puppy dog love of a newbie. And often my friends who are born and bred Lansernets look at me like, okay, you're cute, but maybe it'll wear off soon.
And to clarify, are you North Carolina born?
I was born in Detroit area.
Okay.
And sort of moved to North Carolina when I was, I think, 13 or 14. So yeah, I will still say y'all and a few other things you might hear a twang. But it is very funny being back in Michigan. My husband often comments on how I get a Michigan accent. I'm like, ooh, once I reach like Gretchen Whitmer levels of Michigander accent, that's when I'll feel like I've truly assimilated, you know?
That's right. Chengdu, am I saying that right?
Yeah, you are. Good job.
It's known for its deep tea culture. How did your experiences in Chengdu shape your vision for the tea house here in Old Town?
Well, during COVID, a lot of things weren't accessible. And fortunately, tea houses in Chengdu, especially because they don't have winter there really, are mostly outside. So you could go to a park and safely sit in a tea house. And I would do videos from these tea houses, sort of connecting with Chinese social media, like through Douyin and WeChat channels. And I became a minor celebrity this way, and I'd get paid to do that. So I got a chance to get to know a lot of tea house owners and collaborate with them and learn more about the business. And I'd been in love with tea culture since I first went to China in 2001. And I study Yangsheng culture, which is the nurturance of life. Sort of like a precursor to Chinese medicine, I guess, or a philosophy of how you live your life every day in order to never actually get sick. And tea is an intrinsic part of that. So I've just been fascinated. You know, an online handle I used to have for like, live journal or other sorts of things way back when was Juha Cha, which is chrysanthemum tea, which is one of my favorite teas. So I'm that hardcore. I really love tea. And so I thought when moving back to America, what could I do? What value could I bring to a place where I don't have the reputation that I have in China, where I don't have the connections? How can I use my Chinese expertise to add to a community? And I thought, oh, tea, obviously.
Yes. And you've mentioned that the goal of your tea house isn't just to provide tea, but to provide an experience. So can you talk to me about the typical tea experience and what that looks like?
Well, it's really about connection. You know, if you're just an individual person, you connecting with your tea, that is what we're looking for, or you connecting with your book or your phone even, or a friend or a puzzle. You know, there's one customer who comes and he does a search, like word searches.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he comes about once a week and he just has a tea on his own, sits there for about an hour or two. And he just says it's his calm, happy place. You know, I'm one of those people that in some ways I'm incredibly extroverted, but in other ways introverted. So I have always enjoyed going to social areas, even if I'm not necessarily talking to anyone else. So it's that kind of connection as well. But really, the whole experience is about, sitting down and slowing down. And you're not just consuming the water or the benefits of the tea leaves, you're consuming that moment of meditation. So that's really what I mean by the tea experience.
That's really fascinating. And speaking of the experience, tea culture is such an integral part of Chinese history. So, how do you bring the elements of Chinese tea rituals into your tea house?
Well, I've done a simplified version of Gong Fu Cha. Gong Fu Cha is sort of the, I guess, like Kung Fu tea, you could think of it. It is part of a martial art. You do have to connect, you have to bring your chi up and really connect with the tea. And the full ceremony, I mean, it's different all over China. China is an incredibly diverse country. So obviously, I don't want to claim it of any particular region, but this was very common in Chengdu, where you don't necessarily have to wash the tea every time. You don't have to bathe everything in water every time, but that is an option. I have the full tea tray. So if someone does want to use a whole pot of boiling water to wash their tea and to wash the tea set and everything, that's totally fine. But I've simplified it so that there's a tea pet usually. There's a gaiwan beiza if someone is able to use that traditional style of cup, or I have, small Chinese tea sets, both of which are ideal for enjoying tea because then each little cup is the perfect temperature every sip, and you can re-steep it multiple times. And the number one best part about it is that when you are focusing on pouring that water into that little teapot, and then from the teapot into your cup, you inadvertently get all of these massive benefits from meditation without actually thinking, I am going to meditate. Because, I'm a yoga teacher too. I'm a Tai Chi teacher as well. I know meditation is good for me, but it is so hard to take that time to be actively mindful like that. But I want some tea. I'm thirsty. I want to enjoy some tea. Oops, I've inadvertently gotten all the benefits of meditation. I forget which university did the study. Might have been University of California. But by pouring tea like that, within 45 seconds, it sort of stabilizes blood pressure. It can elevate mood and provide that calm that like a 45-minute session of meditation would provide.
I recognized that when I walked into the tea house to meet you for your photo shoot and your interview with Christopher, and you sat down and served us tea. And I hadn't seen a tea pet before, but I could feel that sort of passive meditation in pouring and just being in the moment. And it was really beautiful.
I'm so glad you enjoyed that.
I,
Yeah.
I really did. I can't wait to come back. Among the things you've done with the tea house is you have the silent reading club, which seems like such a unique way to foster community. Can you tell me more about that and how it connects with the atmosphere you're trying to create?
Oh yeah. So last night we had another, it was Thursday night, we had another silent reading club, and people arrived and some already recognize each other. So they'd say, hey, maybe sit at the same table, or maybe sit in the other room entirely. And the beauty of it is that if someone wants to be really social, they can really connect afterwards because we read books silently. And then at the end, we spend about 10 minutes. Everyone shares one thing or one quote about their book. If someone doesn't want to talk, they don't have to participate in that part. And there's two readers who often show up who they just want to sit near us and read, and they don't talk, and that's totally cool. But then everyone else really enjoys sharing about their books. And I've discovered quite a lot of books and book genres. Like I didn't know sports romance was a thing. I didn't know. Yeah, there's all of these very specific genres nowadays. And it's really fun to learn about all of these different books. And I've discovered quite a few. We often have traded books after we finish them now too.
I love that. With your wide range of work experience in China, I mean, you were an executive at a major construction company. What
Mhm.
led you to transition into the world of tea and hospitality?
Well, in China, tea is such an important part of business. Everyone knows about alcohol being an important part of business in China. And it's true. You need the alcohol to open up the conversation, in part because there is a lack of faith in contracts there. So you need to get someone drunk so you can see who they are. Um, so I understand why that happens. But then the next day, when you're actually discussing business, it's always over tea. And the beauty of this job I had with a construction company is I traveled the whole country, the whole country. There's more than 100 cities in China with a population of 1 million or more. Many of these cities, even Chinese people haven't heard of. And so I get to go to a lot of these places because they're the ones that are growing so fast and building so much. And each of these regions has a different, unique tea culture. And often, and the next day you've had a lot of alcohol the night before, you're in a
Mhm.
boring meeting, but you can always get the person talking animatedly, excitedly about their local tea, which they've shared with you. You're having this tea as part of the meeting. And it was just so interesting and so enjoyable. And I kept that sense of curiosity throughout the rest of my career in China. And to try to take tea out of anything in China would be impossible, you know.
Can you talk about the emotional or spiritual aspects of tea that you hope your customers will experience?
I mean, I think the that sense of connection. So a lot of people have commented that, like I had one customer, she didn't know tea was hot. She'd only ever had iced tea. She had no
Wow.
idea that tea could be served hot. And I'm not judging her. It's not in, American culture necessarily anymore, right?
Right.
So, when she first had it, after I smacked a cup out of her hand because she was about to take a swig of boiling hot tea.
Oh,
So I was like, no, stop. But after, I introduced it to her and she sat down and she ended up staying for like 2 hours and had two pots of tea. And she was like, it's like a warm hug, and that's so much of what tea is about for me is that comfort, that joy, that connection. And, again, why I'm such a I just prefer the Chinese teacups because then it's every sip is that perfect hot temperature. It's hot but not scalding, and it's with the tea trays and the tea pets especially. If your tea ever gets below that nice hot warm hug level, you just share it with your tea pet and pour another cup.
that's right. That sounds good. You
Mm.
mentioned in our 517 business article, you were kind of joking about proselytizing the joy of tea, and obviously you've
Mm.
talked within this interview about people being so passionate about it. I see why you're passionate. Why do you think everyone else is so passionate about it?
Because they get that connection too.
Hmm.
I have met dozens of people now who've come in who they know what a Gaiwan Beizi is. They know what Gong Fu Cha is. And these are not people of Asian descent. These are not people who've ever even spent time in Asia, as far as I know. But they discovered it through some accident and they have totally fallen in love with it. I was thinking about some merch I could create to make the business more sustainable. And I think I'm going to make a t-shirt that says tea snob because, be loud and proud, baby, right?
Absolutely.
It's been really interesting meeting all of the people, and the whole variation, the spectrum of tea snobbery in this city. It's very delightful.
I have followed you on social for quite some time. What many folks may not know about you is that you were a popular figure in China. You say semi famous, you're very humble about it, but you've done television broadcasting, you've modeled. If I read correctly, you've done opera, you've trained in opera.
Yes, yes. I have an MFA in Chinese opera. What originally drew me to Chinese opera is the improv aspect of it.
Mm.
Traditionally, there was no director. Each actor just would embody their character, and often they'd never worked together before, but they could come together on stage and create this perfect performance. Just, But I guess, yeah, I have had a very weird career. It's hard for me to believe sometimes everything I've done too. I've had people not, my husband doesn't believe me sometimes. And then he finds out from other people that it's true. And he's like, oh, wow. Like
I say it's
the,
a life well lived, and you're still quite young. So what's
well,
left? What else do you plan to do that is out of the box, out of the ordinary?
well, I definitely plan on running for office someday. I want to get the tram back on Washington Street in Lansing.
Hmm.
I want to make downtown business more accessible. I want to connect communities. So I definitely plan on doing that at some point. But in the meantime, I think I'm thinking about trying to publish a little bit of something, just sharing my story, because I think a lot of people forget that the benefit of being American is that we can take from everything, everything that the world has to offer. We don't have to be trapped by our genetic or geographic heritage.
How has business been for you so far?
Surprisingly good. um, I have had a lot of, some massive Chinese tea brands have tried to expand to America and failed spectacularly after big investments. I've had some local Chinese businessmen tell me that I would fail, and I've had some local, landstronauts tell me that I would fail, but I think the community wants this. I think the community wants a place to connect, and they want a place that is not just alcohol. Like I love a drink too, but sometimes you want to have a space that is not doesn't, distract from that. And I still drink coffee. I love, like, Blue Owl is my go-to coffee shop.
Mm-hmm.
But you can only sit and drink so many cups of coffee.
Right.
You can have endless amount of tea.
And with the state of the world, I think we could all use that warm hug we talked about
Oh, yes.
earlier.
Oh, yes.
Will
Very much so.
things going on with tariffs affect your business inventory?
So much. It's been actually, that's one of the biggest problems, one of the biggest stressors. Tea exporters do not currently want to even ship tea to America because they don't know. Nobody knows what the situation is. It's not even about a tariff or not. If I had to pay 25% more for tea, that would suck, but I could still make it happen. I just would make less profit, but we could do it, but nobody knows. And nobody knows who has to pay and when they have to pay. And so that lack of stability has been detrimental, not just to me, but every tea business I know. Probably one could say every business I know. I don't know a single business person who is happy about the tariffs.
Right.
So I've actually stopped, for the most part, selling any tea for people to purchase, because my real mission is about the experience in the tea house, and I want to ensure that I actually have enough tea to do that. And I was just on the phone with a supplier yesterday. They said whatever we have in our warehouse in LA, that's all that's available. We cannot guarantee anything else right now. I'm lucky that I have a good stock of good teas. The problem is that some of my tea is very expensive, so I didn't want to sell it for I normally offer 10 or 15 a pot, which I think is a pretty good deal. It's cheaper than getting 2 to 3 coffees. But yeah, some of the tea is just very expensive. I was paid for a gig that I did last fall in the world's best green tea. Like, it was the award-winning from 2024 World Tea Expo. And I've shared that tea with some VIP guests we've had. But yeah, I don't know if I feel guilty charging $30 for a pot, but I would literally be, you know what I mean? I was paid in this tea. It's worth, like, this one box of tea is worth $1,000,
Wow.
So yeah.
Well, that experience can be priceless. So we'll be wishing the best.
Thank you.
Anything else you think our listeners should know?
Goodness, I don't want to sound horrible, but several people have come in expecting British style tea. And the reason British style tea is served the way it is because it certainly was trash tea. Like the bits that fell off of the good tea.
Sure.
They would sweep it up off the floor, and that's why it's served in bags. And that's why you can only steep it once. It's why it's often bitter. And so ultimately, drinking Chinese style tea is much cheaper, assuming one can get a hold of the tea leaves, because who knows?
Right.
But not only because you can steep it multiple times, but the flavor is just much better. I've had multiple guests who are used to drinking British style tea and they want cream and sugar. And I'm always like, please just try it this way first. Because if you look, I bought a very expensive English breakfast tea because I want to accommodate people. I want them to be happy. But yeah, I can't. I show them it's little bits. This is the trashy. It's why they have to have so many scoops. It's why you have to steep it for 5 minutes. It's why it's bitter. Versus when you have the nice black tea leaves, they're long, they're flavorful. It's almost creamy, if that makes sense. Yeah, I just want people to know that tea is enjoyable. It's incredibly healthy. And I've already seen many people doing what I sort of envisioned for this space, and that is connecting with other people, like-minded and otherwise, because if nothing else, anyone who walks into the door is someone who is interested in tea. And so that means there is a potential for connection right there. And I've hopefully curated a very welcoming space for anyone who wants to enjoy tea.
I think if you are open to it, it can be truly a transformative experience to just come in and try it the way you serve it and just be.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's also a very kid-friendly space. So bring your granddaughter sometime.
I love that. Will do. Thank you so much, Elyse, for joining us. And if I can give you another word I've worked on or another phrase, 回头见.
Oh, not bad. 会头见.
Hui Tojian. Okay. Thank you
Yeah,
for the
Hui Toutian.
lessons
Yeah.
today.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, so nice to chat with you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the 517 in Your Business podcast. Get to know local businesses better by reading 517 Business Magazine. Get your subscription at 517mag.com/subscribe.